Hello and welcome back. Recently I was playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey and I liked the start screen. So, as a fun project, I recreated it in Affinity Photo. Here is my finished Odyssey recreation, and in today's video I will share with you how to create the 3D extruded Roman style text effect in Affinity Photo, which is applied on the word Odyssey. We're also going to have a look on using styles in Affinity Photo. So let's get going. I will start by adding a fill layer by using the Layer New Fill Layer menu. This will act as the background color of our canvas. When you add a new fill layer, it will use the active foreground color from your color selection. In my case, it was white, so the fill layer has become white. As the text is going to have a golden look, I will change the color of the fill layer to a dark red color, which usually works very well with gold. Excellent, we are halfway done. We are going to use only 2 layers and we did the first layer. The next layer will be our text layer, and to add that I'm going to select the Artistic Text tool. With the Artistic Text tool selected, I will click and drag on the canvas until I get a big enough font size. Let's type in Odyssey. Before moving on, I'm going to change the font to a serif font, in this case just Times New Roman. Here's a quick tip for all of you who have a lot of fonts installed. You can filter the list of fonts to Recent, which shows the fonts you have used recently, but you can also change it to Used. Then it will show only the fonts used in the current document, and there is even the possibility to set fonts as favorites. Now that my font is set, I'm going to change the color to something close to gold, which will be a yellow-orangey color. We got our base ready. Time to apply the 3D extruded text, and we will use the layer effects for this. Make sure your Layer Effects panel is enabled by using the View Studio menu to access the layer effects. Or you can also click on the Effects button in the Layers panel, which will open up the Layers Effect dialog. I will use the Effects panel. The first effect I'm going to apply is a 3D effect. So I will expand the 3D section and click on the cog icon to open up the Effects dialog containing the full settings. Wonderful. Let's enable a 3D effect and see what happens. We get this nice softly elevated text. However, what we are looking for is a very sharp transition between the highlights and the shadows. We can use the profile for this. From the drop-down, I will select the first preset, which is what we are looking for. The moment I have selected it, you notice probably that we are getting close to what we are looking for. The edges have a linear transition instead of a soft transition. Next, I will increase the specular, the shininess, and the ambient sliders, so we get a very strong effect. Later on, we will adjust them to our needs. Time to get rid of the gaps between the edges. Basically, we need to increase the radius of the edges. And as you guessed, I'm going to increase the radius slider. Perfect. Let's move the text a bit so we can see more of it. Tip here, if you didn't know, as with most dialogues in Affinity Photo, you can move and zoom in the canvas while the dialogue is open. Another point of attention is the light source. The light is coming from the right in this case, as you can see from the shine and the shadows in the text. I'm going to move it to the other side by dragging the dot in the direction sphere. Nice. We can also add another light source by using the Add button. Affinity added a new light source with default settings. The light is coming from the right again in white. I'm going to change that again, and this time I'm going to position the light in front of the text. This, of course, brightens the whole text, including the shadows, because the light is too strong. In order to dim down the effect of the second light, I'm going to change its color to a darker golden color. The reasoning why I have a second light source is it enables me to adjust the shadow color in the text, otherwise it will be more grayish. Before moving on to the next effect, we can experiment with the settings and fine-tune it to our liking. I think this is about right. I can now close the dialog and our effect is done. But before doing that, I'm going to add a couple of more effects to spice it up. Again, these are all optional. The first effect I can add is the bevel emboss. The bevel emboss will do the same as the 3D effect, and exactly because of that, the effect gets stronger. Let's set the type to inner first and change the profile, just like with the 3D, to a linear line. If we increase the radius, we kind of get a copy of the 3D effect on top of it. A bit of extra fine-tuning with the direction to get that look I'm looking for. Another tip here is to change the color of the shadow, in this case to a brownish color which is close to a dark golden color. Not bad at all. On to the next effect, the inner glow. Reason why I am adding this is to achieve the feeling of some kind of glow coming from the gold. I'm going to make the effect a bit stronger by using the hard-lined blend mode and increase the radius. We're not seeing much because the glow is applied to the edge. If I change the mode to center, we get what we want. Now, the white color is way too much, so let's adjust that. This looks good. And the final effect I'm going to add is the inner shadow. This will create a nice glowy transition on the edges. The effect is called inner shadow, but if we change the blend mode to screen or lighten, it can act like a glow. To have it act like a glow, we also need to select a light color. I'm going to select a fitting color and then let's play with the sliders until we get a nice effect. There we have it. Pretty amazing, right? I forgot one thing that might come in handy, especially if you resize the text. Let me go back to the effects panel and open the effects dialog. Everything is disabled. Why? Because no layer is currently selected. If I go back to the layers panel and select the text, the dialog gets enabled. So, the thing I forgot was the scale with object checkbox. When this is turned on, the effect parameters will be corrected in relation with the scale change of the layer. For example, if I had a border radius of 4 and I would make the layer 2 times smaller, the border would have become 2 when this checkbox is turned on. This makes sure that in most cases, the effect will look the same when you resize a layer. Now, this is a lot of steps to get this look. You can imagine that if you are using these set of effects quite often, you don't want to go through all these steps again. This is where styles come into play. If your styles panel is not visible, you can enable it from the View Studio menu. The cool thing is now we can store all we did as a style, so we can reapply all these steps with one click. If we have our text layer selected, I can now click on the hamburger menu on the Styles panel and select Add Style from Selection. A new style is added to our list. It gets a default name, but to remember what this is, we can rename it by right-clicking on it and selecting Rename. Pretty cool. Let's see how styles work. Now, if I add a new piece of text, I can click on the style we just created. And voila, all the steps have been applied. That is pretty awesome. One thing to keep in mind, as you might have noticed, the style also stores your font details. So the new text we added gets resized to match the size in the style. I will also show you another way of applying all these effects to another layer. Let's remove the text and add it again. I will go back to the layer with the effects and select Copy, either from the menu or with the keyboard shortcut Command C. If I select the new layer, I can paste the effects only by selecting the Paste FX menu item from the Edit menu. This applies the same effects from the copied layer to the new layer. Pretty useful. Important notice here, it only copied the effects of the originating layer, not the color or the font properties, whereas the styles does copy the color and the font properties. This is why the colors don't match. But we can fix this by changing the color of the text. Before I leave you, let me share another cool trick to bring in some highlights to the text. I'm going to add a circle first and then set its color to white. Next, I will change the blend mode to screen. Now, let me blur it using the effects panel and selecting Gaussian blur. This is about right. The final step is to make this a clipped child layer of the text. We can do that by dragging it and dropping it on the title of the text layer. Cool, the white color is too bright, so let's set it to a more yellowish color. The effect is not very visible, because our text is already quite bright itself. If we use a bit of darker text color, have a look at that. Pretty amazing, isn't it? I can make a copy of it and reuse it on other parts where I would like to have the shine. Or maybe give some extra shine on the top, just by resizing and repositioning the layer. Awesome. Or maybe at the center. Quick tip, by adjusting the blur radius of this layer, you can customize the sharpness of the shine. I will switch back to my Odyssey image. And as you can see, I have applied this technique on the text and on the logo. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, make sure you hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe. Until the next video, stay tuned and keep being creative.